I've coached more than 300 entrepreneurs in peak performance, and I always see the same 12 lead indicators that tell me that someone is finally operating at peak performance, even before they realize it. This video will show you exactly how elite performers think, what they do differently, and how you can apply the same principles and concepts into your own life. You'll realize that peak performance is not about talent, IQ, or high work, but about embodying a specific set of values and mental models that will guarantee peak performance in your life and business, which will eventually guarantee success in whatever you choose to pursue. Welcome back. My name is Leon Castillo, founder of Self-Master, which is a performance institute for founders. We help people like you scale without any procrastination, overwhelm, or burnout. This video is about the lead indicator, the 12 signs that I typically see in every one of our clients that tell me that they're really accessing the higher stages of their potential. Sign number one is moving from an events mindset to a system mindset. What does that mean? It means that average performers, those that are in training performance, typically see the world as a collection of random events, as a collection of things that just happen, and they're not able to trace the cause-effect relationship between those events. They just see things happening around them, but they cannot really understand why they do. So they cannot reverse engineer the outcomes they want and map out a plan that actually works for them. What is the alternative? What do elite performers do differently? Well, elite performers see everything as a system. They understand that the universe is a collection of systems that are all intertwined, that the causes of a system are the outputs of a different system, and so on and so forth. And this is important because it gives them the ability to map out all of the inputs and the processes that are related to the output they want, which leads to designing robust systems that deliver the outcomes they want in their life, in their business, in their relationship, everything. Like, for instance, someone who is an average performer and wants to get ripped might just go to the gym, hopefully looking to build muscle. But an elite performer will systematically map out what specific exercise routine he has to follow, paired with what specific diet he needs to follow and what other physiological variables that will lead to him being ripped 10 or 12 weeks down the line. Everything is mapped out systematically: diet, exercise, rest, everything, to get the outcome they want. So when someone goes from events mindset to systems mindset, they start operating at a higher potential. Which leads me to sign number two. It's moving away from goal setting to systems building. See, everyone sets goals, but just a few people actually achieve them. And the difference is not in the goal setting process. The difference is in the systems building process in relation to that goal. We need goals because we are teleological, as Aristotle would say, but we should focus on the process that leads to the goal instead of just focusing on the goal. Average performers just wish they were able to achieve their goal, but do not systematically chase those goals, looking at their daily actions and their weekly initiatives that go into achieving that goal. So that is switch number two, moving away from I want to achieve that to what do I need to be working on today and this week in order to guarantee the outcome that I am going after. Which leads me to point number three, which is moving away from SMART goals to stretch goals. And this one is huge because I am sure you've heard in the past that SMART goals are the best way of setting goals that you actually follow through. SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. But let me tell you, SMART goals are dumb because they do not motivate you enough. There's research that says that unless we are intrinsically motivated to chase a goal, we will not go after it. And typically, we are motivated to extend our comfort zone, to chase goals that are a little bit outside of the comfort zone that we're typically comfortable with, in a direction that we highly value. In other words, setting goals that make us feel uncomfortable but have a lot of meaning. So it's not about being attainable and realistic, but instead it's about pushing outside of what we normally be able to achieve in a way that it feels meaningful to us. And once we have that stretch goal very clear, then we can create systems that are smart that are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound that we can follow every single week to get to that stretch goal. But if we start at the level of a SMART goal, we are shooting ourselves in the foot because we will not care enough to go after that. Sign number 4 is moving away from being a victim of habits to being an architect of habits. And this one is huge because average performers typically they have a behavioral stack, a set of behaviors that do not help them achieve their goals. But instead of conscientiously designing a better behavioral stack, instead of systematically auditing all the routines and the habits they're not happy with and substituting them with higher performing habits, they just are at the mercy of those bad habits. So sometimes they will be able to do what they wanted to do, but most times they don't. So they, in essence, keep themselves stuck. Elite performers on the other side, they start designing a behavioral stack that works for them. They systematically analyze everything that is not working in their life and they find better alternatives. So let's say that someone is not able to wake up with the snap of a fingers in the morning. Well, the average performer will just hope he's able to wake up in the morning. The elite performer will map out exactly what are the triggers of him staying in bed in order to reverse them and make sure that once the alarm goes off the following morning, he's able to wake up and just go and do what he needs to do. And that is a very tiny example of what being a designer of your habit actually means. It's about taking control of your behavioral inclinations. And this is something all elite performers do because no one is, born disciplined. No one has relentless drive. This is something you build in your mind over time. Which leads me to point number 5, which is moving away from motivation into drive. And this one's huge. See, average performers are able to do a good work only when they are motivated, only when they feel like doing things. Otherwise, they won't do them. They are at the mercy of their internal and external environment. If they feel like doing something, they will do it. If they don't, they won't do it. But this is what average performers do, and this is what keeps them stuck. Elite performers on the other side, they rely on drive, discipline, and commitment. They architect their lives so that they're driven by their commitments to do what they said they were going to do. They do not budge. They do what they say they were going to do, and that is what over time creates a higher performing self, because you do not rely on fleeting bouts of motivation, but instead you are absolutely focused on the things that drive your discipline and increase your drive to achieve higher and higher things. Before I share the next one, if you're seeing any value of the video, like it so your algorithm feed improves on YouTube, but it also helps me help more people. Sign number 6 is when one of our clients moves from having tons of things on their table to having just one or two things. In other words, they go from being spread too thin to be laser focused on the highest leverage tasks. And in fact, only by doing this, you can already upgrade your performance tremendously. Only by identifying the things that actually matter, you can drive an insane amount of progress. Because if you have 10 units of energy and you're chasing 10 different things, you're going to get stuck. But if you have 10 units of energy and you're chasing one thing, you'll make 10 times the amount of progress. And if you're able to identify the things that actually matter, because a lot of people are able to be laser focused on the unessential, when you really find the thing that matters, that is when you start really operating at a much higher performance, because you narrow your focus, you increase your performance, and therefore your result also improve tremendously. What leads me to point number 7, which is comparing yourself to others the right way. See, when we work with entrepreneurs, we see average entrepreneurs that they feel like they should compare themselves in order to feel bad about their own accomplishments. They use comparison as a self-deprecation mechanism, which makes them feel miserable. And that is totally normal. We are wired as a species to compare to others for survival. The thing is, if you compare yourself to others to feel bad about yourself, then that becomes a negative feedback loop. And the more the people you admire progresses, and the more stuck you will feel. The opposite, the right way of doing this, is to understand that everybody you compare yourself with is able to teach you a lesson. Even if you don't particularly like the person or you don't really know how they got there, you can still learn from them. Especially when you're doing much better, they can teach you lessons that you can implement. And we see this in a lot of our high level clients, that they really understand that the things that they used to feel envy about, now they admire, even on people they don't like, because they signal the path for them to grow. Sign number 8 is when to stop avoiding discomfort, instead commit to being uncomfortable every day. This one is huge. Nobody likes discomfort. We are wired as a species to avoid pain and discomfort, but in order to grow, we must endure pain and discomfort. So average performers shy away from that discomfort. Elite performers choose the right type of discomfort, and then they commit to it. They embrace it wholeheartedly, knowing that at the other side of discomfort stands growth. And that is a huge difference between average and elite performers, because no one likes to be discomfortable, but those that choose their discomfort and typically choose the most productive discomfort end up having the best results because they have the best growth. Sign number 9 is moving the conversation away from hours worked to things accomplished. And this one is huge because average performers have drunk the Kool-Aid of hustle culture. They believe that only hustle is what matters, working 24/7, sacrificing it all in order to get something off the ground. That is bad advice, because that would only lead to burnout. The solution is to focus on leverage, on maximizing the outputs you get per unit of input, to understand how to really get more done, not necessarily by you, by leveraging yourself through capital, through labor, through technology, whatever, right? So when someone stops thinking in terms of hard work and starts thinking in terms of leverage, that's when you see they're getting closer to elite performance. Sign number 10 is the relationship with feedback. See, average performers have a fixed mindset, and they interpret feedback as some sort of attack, not something that is there to make them better, but instead something that signals the things they're not good at. So they typically shy away from any kind of feedback. Elite performers, on the other side, crave feedback. They ask for advice. They install feedback loops in their life because they understand that the more they realize they're not doing the things the right way, the better they can improve. So over time, they're able to get more done and improve faster than anyone else. Really, peak performance is just a feedback leveraging game. The more feedback you get and the more feedback you can learn from, the better your performance, the better your results. Which leads me to sign number 11, is when they move away from being surrounded by noise by zero-in signal. See, once you leverage feedback and you have feedback loops going for yourself on your day-to-day, you start finding patterns. You start finding the things that tell you what you should be focused on in order to reach the next level, right? You find the things that are working in business, you find the things that are working in your personal life, and this is what we call signal. So instead of being drowning in noise, not really knowing what you're doing, not understanding what are the tasks that are important, those that are not, elite performers realize that through feedback, they can identify the top 1% of things they should devote their time to. And that's the only thing they care about. That's the only thing they actually zero in. So that's a huge one. When someone moves from being, a little bit chaotic and drowning in noise to be feedback focused on finding signal. And finally, sign number 12 is how you interpret obstacles, because average performers see obstacles as problems, as situations that keep them down, that keep them stuck, that drag their hopes down. But elite performers understand those challenges as opportunities for leveling up, because they understand that the harder something is, the less people will be willing to undergo the transformation necessary in order to solve those obstacles. So every time they encounter an obstacle, elite performers rejoice because they see as a necessary stepping stone to really reach the next level. Average performers, on the other side, lament their fate. They lament the fact that they need to go through that experience, which typically either prevents them from actually tackling the objective, or they make them drag themselves until they find the motivation to finally solve it, right? So these are all of the lead indicators that I've noticed our clients start deploying that tell me that they're really moving to the upper stages of performance. 1. Moving from reductionist thinking to holistic thinking. 2. Moving from having a goal-only focus to a system-oriented approach. 3. Moving from smart goals to stretch goals. 4. From being a victim of habits to being a beneficiary of habits. 5. Moving away from relying on motivation to relying on drive and discipline. 6. Moving away from being spread too thin to have selective focus. 7. Moving away from destructive comparison to constructive comparison. 8. Moving away from avoiding discomfort into having all-in commitment into finding the areas of most growth. And next is moving from hours worked to things accomplished. Then moving away from avoiding feedback to seeking feedback. Then moving away from being surrounded by noise by finding the signal that matters. And finally, understanding obstacles as gifts that signal what are the highest growth opportunities. Once you start seeing this in yourself, you will be on your way to really increase your performance. So if right now you are deploying average performer mindset in any of these things, realize there's a better alternative, which we just mapped out, and start making the changes you need in order to really take yourself to the next level. See you in the next video.